Stephen Stewart, CEO of XXIX. Stephen, it's a pleasure to be with you here in Vancouver today. It's also a pleasure to be a shareholder of the company, the copper champion, the new copper champion in Canada, largest high-grade open pit copper deposit in Canada. It's interesting the way this company came about. You did a lot of work in the office to put it together last year, and now 2025 stands to be a transformational year for you guys. Tell us about what the plans are for 2025.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. Pleasure to be here, and I see we're one of your top stock picks for 2025, so we're going to be working hard for you. We've got really two parallel plans, and you're right, we did work hard to acquire the Thierry Project. It was a corporate transaction, if you will, something that we bought out of a special situation and rolled in to make us one of the largest owners of copper in Canada. I mean, that's something we're very proud of, and I think that's something that investors can hold on to. They'd have to be a little bit patient with the market, but if you can focus on good quality teams, good quality assets, people who are going to move forward two projects, I think XXX has tremendous value right now, so it's a great stock pick. What are we going to be doing in 2025? Well, it's really two-pronged, as I said. In Quebec, it's really all about delineating the engineering and economics of the Opemiska. It's Canada's highest grade open pit copper deposit. It's on the rail, it's on the road, has access to grid hydropower. That means green, clean, low-cost power, some of the lowest cost power in Canada. And we've done a phenomenal job of taking 1 million meters of drilling that were completed by Falcon Bridge. We've done about 100,000 meters ourselves to understand this geology. There's maybe a couple of months ago I said there's no more surprises on this deposit until about 2 or 3 weeks ago when we had a surprise ourselves. We drilled sort of an infill hole in between the two core areas of the Springer and the Perry on the saddle zone, and we hit nice 6% copper over 11 meters. And so there's a little more in store there, so we're going to go back and fine-tune and really maximize the drilling as much as possible so that we can put that into our mine plan. And I don't want to be too specific on the timing, but certainly the priority and the objective for us is to publish a PEA on the Opemiska, so it can be defined in terms of IRR, et cetera, et cetera. You know, personally, I'm not so fussed on IRRs, even though we do think the IRR is going to be good. To me, it's a stepping stone to get to the pre-feasibility. That's where the detailed engineering is. That's when we can define to those who build and operate mines that this is going to be a mine again. So that's a lot of work. That's what Guy Labelle is in charge of doing. He's our president and mining engineer. And then on our Ontario side, the brand new asset, we acquired Ontario's largest copper deposit. And that's in Pickle Lake. It's a project that has lots of analogs to Opemiska in terms of former production, a huge database, which we love brownfields environments. Again, infrastructure, railroad, power, et cetera. All these boxes, we're so fortunate to have projects like that. We know less about it than we do with the Opemiska. As I said, we've spent 4 years on Opemiska understanding the nooks and the crannies, whereas this is relatively new to us. So for the next 12 months, we're going to, the next month or two, it's still about data validation, building out that model, and understanding. They have two core deposits, two nodes. We've got a 24 million ton deposit at 1.6% copper, and then we've got a 54 million ton deposit that's open pit at about 0.4. And then there's stuff at the bottom. So we're asking ourselves, well, why are there two discrepant? What's up with the variance in grade? What is the geologic factors that control that? Can we unlock that? There's certainly potential in between those to connect it. But what I'm trying to say is Thierry, our project in Ontario, represents growth, drilling, and then the idea is to find the limits of the geology, define it in a 43-101, and then we throw it into the same loop that Opemiska is in, defining the engineering, moving it forward. As I said in the presentation, the ore group itself does not take on any project that it believes has a chance to become a mine. Now, those are big chances and those are big statements, but we vet everything very carefully, and we think both these projects have a legitimate shot at becoming a mine. That requires a lot of time, capital, luck, and work and grinding it out. You got to make these things, right? Mm-hmm. Unless you get lucky, you got to make them and grind them out. We've got great teams. We've proven the ability to finance ourselves very well. We've proven the ability to attract major mining companies to come in and to help us finance, which attracts capital in and of itself. And gives us long-term shareholders, just like we are. We're a major shareholder. The executives of XXIX and ORCAP owns a significant percentage of it as well. So we take a long-term view, putting money in the ground. Lots of news flow this year, and anyways, there you go. Those are the plans for 2025.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot because the company has a lot going on. I made it a top pick for the Ontario asset. Really, I feel that is the driver. That is the big catalyst for 2025. I love Opemiska, and I think it's the foundation of value for the company. I think it supports the current market cap, which is still pretty low, I think, quite frankly. So, in Ontario, just taking a look at the maps, some of the sections you have on the website, the presentation, it stands out for the grade, the copper grades. I mean, you don't get 1% plus copper that often in 2025, right? So I feel like, as a shareholder, that is where you can raise the profile of the company. You can really grab some attention, because if you don't drill, shareholders don't care. You don't find more investors, right? So what's the plan to show some high grade at the K1 or the K2 zone? You said to tie in the two deposits. What's the plan there, and maybe what's the timeline?
So the timeline is, I would say we got about another month or two before we're ready to point the drills and announce the drill program. It's still doing some of the unsexy work, but very, very important in terms of de-risking and making sure that you use those meters effectively. So it's not too far off, and it's coming soon. And what we're going to do, we're going to attack the open pit portion first, because that's what we know most about. That's the deposit where we've got about 54 million tons at roughly 0.4, and that's just copper. If you add on the nickel, it gets higher, but we just basically underwrote this at copper. We think that has the ability to grow quickly and really add scale with lesser risk. I think we drilled 7 holes in 2024, which demonstrated that both that open pit deposit to the east is open laterally east and west and at depth. It's only that 54 million tons is only defined to 150 meters, Rob. That's very, very shallow. Whereas, just to juxtapose it, Opemiska is 450 meters. So, and you never know if it pinches out, but we know that we poke those holes underneath it, which is not in that model, and we hit 200 meter zones in one instance. Another, we hit 170 meter zones. Now, this is not a porphyry deposit. It's not a homogeneous body, but it's stacked vein systems. And not only do you see the veins, you can see it very clearly in the veins, but also in between the veins, it's not dead rock. So it carries, the host rock carries. So it's got a huge potential on that open pit there. And then on the high grade zone, that's what you referenced. That certainly got my attention there. I think, as I said, 24 million tons at 1.6% copper. Very, very high grade. What you need is scale there, right? So you need to get that bigger. It is open to, if you look at some of our sections, sort of the southwest portion of it is open. So we have to put more meters there. I'd say that's where we know less about. So that database is much more complex and requires much more work. So that's really where we're working now. So we can confidently go out there and probably drill the K1, tomorrow, so to speak, and get started. Whereas the underground deposit requires more work. And then, to me, the sweet spot, the blue sky, is not only understanding why one deposit is so much higher grade than the other, but then seeing if we can connect the two. So there's about four kilometer zone, if you will, in between them. It's on strike, and that's how these deposits are formed. They are on strike, right? The works in a straight line. We have geophysics to support. The signatures exist there. The question is, can you find it? And if you do find whatever it is connecting it, is it economic? There's virtually no drilling that was done in there, and certainly no drilling that we would point that drill in that particular direction. So I think that infill zone, if you will, which is blue sky, has a lot of potential. So it's expansion locally at K1, expansion locally at K2, understanding what's going on at the south, which again has another 50 million ton resource at about 0.4. Admittedly, we know much less about it. It's quote unquote a historic resource, so we have lesser confidence in there. But there's no question there's lots of mineralization on the south, and obviously up in the north in those two K1, K2 deposits.
Final question, Stephen. Can you tell us about the share structure, how many shares you own, the management team owns, and the company's cash
Start with cash. We have about $6.8 million as per our most recent financials, so we're in relatively good. We're strong relative to many of our peers. We still own 11 million shares of baseload energy, which is at its all-time low, but cashed up and ready for a strong 2025 season. We have 250 million shares outstanding, and that's as a, we just sort of, I wouldn't say double, we added about 33% as a result of this acquisition of QCCUF, which is now 100% owned. Both assets are 100% owned, and I personally own about maybe 9 million shares, rough or take. I have to count it, but it's in that range. I own a significant piece. I paid cash for my shares, and I also own through ORCAP, which is one of our other portfolio companies. ORCAP owns about 36 million shares of XXIX, and I'm the largest shareholder in ORCAP. So I have sort of two levels of exposure to it, and I'll be a buyer in 2025.
Nice. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, Rob.